Okay, I haven't filmed everything, but I've cut all that dodgy repair out and all of the inner sill, and I've cut it right up to, well and truly above clean metal. There is an overlap there, which is why it stops there, because I'm replicating that. So that is the front piece all cut out and formed. There's a kick in the front here where it folds in, so that's all been put in, and there is a very, very slight kick here. I'm not sure if it will come up on the camera, where the rear section overlaps and then is spot welded, or in this case it will be plug welded. It has affected the floor pan here, so there's a little cut hole in the floor pan we're going to have to repair before this piece can go on. But we're not far away, so we'll get that repaired, and we'll prep up all of the surfaces, and I'll have to draw where all the reinforcements are through the back drill all of our plug weld holes, and then pre-treat with weld through primary in those areas. So I'm just, I've got a bit of time. I'm not going to try and video everything, because obviously my main goal with this is to get the car done. So I'm just going to keep going and give you a few updates as I work through it. So I'll probably come back when we're close to welding that inner sill on. Quick update here. I've cut out all of the old inner sill. I've made a replacement inner sill panel, so that's the side that will be facing outwards. This is the side that's facing inwards. I've cleaned up and back drilled everywhere I'm going to plug weld into a reinforcement. So there's the front torque box, the seat brackets. There's a few other little reinforcements along the side that tie back into the floor pan, and also there's a whole series at the back where they tie directly onto the actual floor pan itself. There was a rust hole through the edge of the floor pan here, which I've patched, and these welds pick up on that, because there's just a butting of these two together, so it's rusted right through. Yeah, all treated with weld through primer, and I've done the same on the corresponding parts. Yeah, there is a small kick on the front of this which I've bent in, and there's a kick at the back because on these cars the inner sill's made of two parts and they overlap. So I'll get this front section in, then I'll make the rear section, that'll actually overlap over that. So this gets plug welded against the floor pan, and then the second section gets plug welded against this. So I'll quickly show you what I've done for prep, and then we'll get this clamped in place and welded in. I'm just about out of memory cards, so I might not capture too much of this. So you can see there, I'll put a little patch in there, but these are all the reinforcements that it's going to tie into. I've cleaned up all the surfaces where it welds against, so we'll get onto it, get this piece in, and we'll get onto the next. So just clamp very basically in place. We're going to get a few tacks along the top, and then we'll clamp it in down the bottom, just to make sure we don't have it bulge out in the middle. So I'll work from the front to the back. So yeah, tack it from the front to the back, and then we'll start pulling it in against all of these reinforcements, clamping it in, and again work from the front to the back. So yeah, we'll start by getting a few tacks in, come back. Okay, so it's all tacked in place, so we're just going to continue on with the welds. Okay, so just finished welding this inner sill in. There's a bit of warpage along the bottom, so we'll straighten that out before the outer sill goes on, but that is all on. We'll give these welds a bit of a clean up, and then we'll get on to making the next section. So, progressing. So a quick one here, we're just about to weld the rear part of our inner sill in. So that's all in there, pre-drilled, rust converted the rear of it, all clamped up where it's gonna overlap the front section, so that all lines up really well. So we'll get into welding that in. The other thing I've done is form the front of this sill and trimmed it. I'll pull it out and give you a better look. So this sill here, I marked this line, which I followed the continuation of the angle of the door down. So what I've done is I've made a couple of cuts and folded this in to form that. Just the beginning, I'm really only going to use this transition, so probably the first few inches of it. A lot of people will just cut the sill square and then butt weld against it. It's nice to have a formed corner. In there's a little bit wrinkly, but that doesn't matter because the guard comes over there. You just want a nice, a reasonably decent fold line. And again, that's underneath, so that's the real one you're after. I will touch it up a bit with a hammer and dolly, but it's not bad. This is exactly how I did the other side. To put that into some sort of context, offering the panel up, it fits like that. So just do a little bit more shaping in here and that'll butt up nicely against there, and we'll cut that off and then form that front section. So that's how I do it. I like to have the bend incorporated into the panel, and I will form the bend at the rear as well where it meets the wheel arch when I'm at that stage. But anyway, that's just a quick thing. And obviously I did cut this at that that cut line we made earlier on. So anyway, we'll get into welding this inner sill in, and then we can start thinking about a bit more final fit on this panel. And I will say, you pay good money for what's basically a piece of sheet metal with a couple of folds in it. These angles are nowhere near where they should be, all right? So it's a big job to fit these, and yes, you need to be able to weld, but you also need to be able to, I guess, picture the finished product and look at how these cars were built. But that fold is almost a right angle, and on the car, it sits like on an angle. Well, you can see the angle it sits on. I'll get a better shot when I'm, excuse me, I'll get a better shot when I'm lining it up. But yeah, so this whole angle the whole way along needs to be tweaked probably, I don't know, probably about 15, 20 degrees. It's way off. So this one seems to work. Well, I suppose it doesn't matter because we're putting this bottom edge in. But yeah, it ends up miles out. So they're not just a thing you plonk in place and weld. You've got to tweak them, like I've found with every single panel I've fitted to this car. So I'm glad this is one of the last big rust repairs. Anyway, that's enough yapping out of me. We'll get some welding done. Not getting anything done while I talk to you, can we? Okay, so that's our inner in. So we'll let that cool down, and you'll see it's a little bit warped just from the amount of heat we've got into it. So we're going to go along that lower edge and get it nice and straight, and then we can start playing around with trial fitting our upper sill, or outer sill. So there it is, all welded in. That's the rear half of our inner sill, all plugged and fully welded. It is a little bit deeper, as you can see at the bottom. So we will trim that off. We'll get a nice straight line in and trim that off, and then once it's cooled down, we'll go along that lower edge with a hammer and dolly and just get it all nice and straight, because you want the straight edge of the outer sill to sit nice, because if it pulls the lower edge out of the shape as you're clamping it up, it obviously pulls the upper edge and any of your lines out of shape. So pretty important. So I've just got the outer mocked up, just sitting in place. Obviously we're using this line here as a datum. There is a little bit of wiggle room there, so I'd rather have it a couple of mil too far back than a couple of mil too far forward. We can always fill or manipulate that front edge. And then what we're doing now is just ruling a line down here, just sort of to mark the continuation of the wheel arch. And we're going to put a cut through here and fold this tab inwards, and that will form the continuation of the wheel arch down that inside edge there. So we'll go and trim that now and continue with our trial fitting. Okay, so I've just been and bent that rear return at the wheel arch. Pretty good at the front here. There's still a little bit of room to move, but at the back we've now got our bend right where we want it, and the bend radius is pretty much matching what we've got. I know this is a bit of a mess here. I'm going to come back to this. This is actually lap. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run a disc along an inch at a time, clean it all out and fully weld it. I will leave it in there because it's all tying everything together reasonably well. This is all going to get filled anyway, so I'm not going to go insane trying to work out what to do with it, but I am going to turn it into a clean butt join because it is a lap, and that gives a chance for any surface rust that's inside there to be cleaned up. So, but yeah, so that's the rear edge. That's all going to butt up pretty nicely, and then that flange will be trimmed off level when we rebuild inside of here. So it's a bit to do, and there's a look at the angle that these come with. So you know, it needs a decent amount of tuning up. So we'll keep going with alignment here. I do have to clean up all the plug welds on the inside, at least the ones that are where this seam meets. And then I can straighten out this flange so the panel sits how it's supposed to sit at the bottom, and then I can trim off the inner sill area and start making preparations to weld the outer in. So coming along, it's a job. But yeah, that angle is just woeful. Anyway, some of that could be my inner sill. It might not have ended up exactly where the original one was either, but it's all butt welded against all of the frame reinforcements, so you wouldn't have thought there was much room for movement. But anyway, it is what it is. Been hammering along here. Inner sill is all finished off. I've masked the bottom, painted it all in black enamel. And then the area that I had masked, the bare area where the contact surfaces are, has been painted in weld through primer. Now the rear section of the inner sill is lower. It's all going to get trimmed off once the sill's welded in. So the sill itself is all prepped up. Same thing, we've scuffed up the inside and painted it with black enamel with this edge masked, all of the contact edges masked off, and then just gone back with some weld through primer and painted all of the mating surfaces. It's all of our plug weld holes are drilled, so we're just about ready to pop it on and start welding, but that might not be today. Yeah, been spoilt with time today, but I think I've used everything that I've got, so yeah, coming along. So yeah, next time you see me, I should be welding this outer sill in. So that's a win. Alrighty, it's Sunday before Cup Day. I've been out all morning at a car show. It's now about 35 degrees in here, and it's over 30 anyway, so what better idea than to come out and do a couple of hours of welding. But anyway, take the moments when they come up. We're all set up. I've got it clamped roughly in place. I will adjust it a little bit as I go. So I'll start putting some tacks to hold it in place. My first priority is keep this plane good. So what I'll do is I'll weld the full way along, or tack it and fill in between the tacks, and then we'll come back and clamp the bottom in place. So yeah, we just want this plane to stay where it needs to be, and then once this is locked in solid, we can mess around with the bottom. I have strained it out fairly well. So yeah, I'm not going to mess around today, I'm just going to get into it. So we'll fire up the welder and get a bit of welding happening. So we're just going to start with a tack at the front and a few tacks along. We can use this paint scraper to help to go into the gap and help even up the alignment, and we'll just tune it up as we go along. So it's nice and flush here already, so we'll start with that point. And we'll just start with every 4 or 6 inches. And we'll just work our way up, trying to keep that alignment nice. Alright, so yesterday I didn't really stop, so the sill is fully welded across the top and it's plug welded along the bottom. Pretty happy with how it's come out, solid as a rock. Yeah, I probably overdid it a bit in the heat yesterday, and I told myself I wasn't going to do anything today, but it's got the better of me, so I've come out and just started playing around with the rear end cap, so I'll show you what I've done there. So we've got to do something to close at the end of the sill there, so I'm obviously replicating what I did on the other side. So I made a cardboard template. Pretty rough, doesn't need to be dead on for what we're doing. Just tune it up on the final piece as we go. So this is what I've made. So I've used that, cut out the piece of steel to that shape and just tuned it up. As I've trial fitted it, I'll put some marks in there just using a hammer and chisel to replicate the factory pressing. It's not perfect, but it's exactly how I did the other side. And once this all gets the body deadener back over it, or Raptorcoat or whatever you want to call it, it's going to look pretty good. You know, it's not a concourse car, so what we're going to do now is put this in and weld it. So it's going to get 2 plugs there. It's plugged along there, plugged all the way along there, and plugged onto here. And then just butt welded onto there. That ties it onto the remaining good area of the original piece. So as far as fit goes, it's not bad. So I'll get this all clamped in place and we'll start welding that in. And that'll probably be all I do today. I'm not going to overdo it, but yeah. So that kind of meets up with there. It's not 100%, but yeah, the Raptorcoat will hide that and then we'll close it off nicely and obviously triangulate and strengthen everything. So that'll be good. All right, we'll get this welded in. Right, one more. Alright, that's an end cap. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's going to be nice and strong. I'll trim it up, grind it back, square off all the edges, and yeah, should be looking pretty good. Thanks so much for tuning in. So I've got the engine out, still waiting on some bits and pieces to finish cleaning up our sills. I've rebuilt all of this front end of the sill and end cap, so that's all ready to be cleaned up. So we'll get to that. Alright, so we've ground our welds back, we've given everything a light skim of filler and blocked it all back, so we're ready to hit it with some primer. So that'll conclude the repair. We'll get some primer on this and that'll be it for here for now. I'll probably do the colour the same time I do the engine bay and all that. Maybe I'll see how it goes. So anyway, we'll get some primer on this. It's looking pretty good. Alright, good to go. So, Sill. Alright, that's her for now. Sill's in, paint's not amazing. I've painted over some crazing and everything, and I've said it all along, I don't care, this is a patina car. It's not a full restoration, so a bit of cracking and crazing is really actually part of the look I'm going for, so that's fine. There's a few pinholes I'm going to have to address, but other than that, I'm pretty happy with it, so I'll leave that to cure, and we'll get back to that at a later date, but considering what we started with, I'm real happy with that, so yeah, I'm going to go have some lunch. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Alright, so just quickly demasked it. It's still drying off a bit, which is why it's varying in colour, but there you can see. It's not perfect, but it is very solid. So there you have it, one new sill. So that's good. We can now start moving on to, thinking about moving on to the engine bay and all those areas. So far better than what we started with.